What is up, guys? My name is Samworld, and today we're going to be doing the complete guide to master Serum. This will be episode 6. So if you ever had a question on how to use the second part of the effects from delay to the filter, this video will be for you. Now, I understand a lot of people will understand what a delay is, what a reverb is, but a lot of people also don't know how to program it and what the knobs do. So today we're going to be talking about how to program these guys to get a desired effect and how you go about it and why we would want to use two filters or why we would need an EQ here and vice versa, and how we can use this for our sound design. Okay, guys, so with that being said, let's get straight into the delay. Now, the delay, guys, is an effect that I'm sure you guys know what it is. Best way to explain it is just an echo or a delay. What I mean by this is if I hit a note, we get an echo, a delay, and you can see it slowly fades away. Now, with the delay, we're going to have the dry and wet. You know, at 50%, you have 50% of the delayed signal coming in, so think of it as a volume knob for the effect. At 100%, you have fully wet. So if I hit a D, you hear a delay and then the delay only. And if I have that all the way down, you just hear that, okay? So I'm going to put the mix at around 50% to talk about the delay. Now, the first important thing in the delay, guys, is going to be this feedback knob here. And the feedback knob is just going to have to do with, like Steve Duda says, feedback for hearing multiple echoes. So the higher this feedback is, the more repetitions you're going to get. So if I have it super low and I hit it, you know, I get it maybe 2 hits. But if I have it super high, it's going to go on for a little bit longer, as you can see. There it goes. There it goes, okay? Simple as that. That's how we would use the feedback. At very high feedback, so very low delay values, we can get combing, this kind of comb style sound. You can self-resonate, as you're going to see what that is about once we get into that. Now, to the right of that, we have the BPM button, which it just syncs it up to Ableton, and it gives you beats per measure, which is a lot easier to utilize a reverb for, unless you're doing the Haas Effect, which we'll talk about as well. Okay? At the bottom, you have links, so that means as you move these guys, they're going to be linked, so they're going to move in conjunction with each other. Let's say I have one like that, and then pretty much it just moved together. They're always the same value. This is useful, let's say, in the fact that you want to make a delay that is in mono, or your sound is in mono, and you just want it to be in the same position as your lead. This is the best way to do that. It stays in mono. It doesn't give us a stereo effect because both values are the same. Okay, to the right of that, we're going to take off the link. Now, we have the timing for the left and the right speaker, or left and right. Now, what that is, it's just the timing. So 116, it's going to take 116 for the delay to come in, and that's going to be the delay, 116. So the faster the delay, the low, you know, 132, 164, these are going to be way faster. As you can hear there, that they're hella fast. Okay, similar. You know, I play at multiple notes, it's not going to sound good because of that. It's too fast. Okay. To the right of that, we have a filter. And this filters the delay itself. So let's assume that you have a sound. You're like, I want the delay just the high frequencies. Then we can move this delay feature to the right. So we only get those nice delays at the top. Mids. You know, let's lower this down to maybe 1/8 so it sounds a little better. Or there we go. There we go. And that's how we get those, okay? Now here we're going to have the different modes of delay. Normal, which will be standard delay. Ping pong, which will force, even if you have the same number left and right, it will force them to play one at a time, so you get a stereo ping pong delay. Even though they're the same, you're still going to get that ping pong. You get sort of like an auto pan if you think about it. And then we have the tap delay, which is a bit weird. From the sound of it, you know, it sets the mode for the delay effect. It doesn't really tell us what it does. But if you hear it, you press a note, and then the delay comes. So it has this sort of delay to it. That's the best way I can explain the tap delay. I rarely use it. Mainly the ones I'm using are the ping pong and the normal for standard sound design. However, if any of you guys know what it's for, you guys can leave a comment down below for it. Okay, with that being said, that's going to be pretty much the delay. So now, as I was talking about delays, you have the timing of it. And usually when you have a sound, you really want to look at how often the sound is playing. Because if you're just hitting that sound now and then, you can definitely have a longer delay. And what I mean by that is you can have a bar long delay. You can have a 1/4 delay. You want to look at that because sometimes you'll get overlapping notes that don't sound good together. So for instance, let's say I play a melody. See, there it works really good. But if I keep playing, it doesn't really sound that good. However, you can make it sound good if you want by using a filter and just getting the highs or the mid lows. In this scenario, I'll go with the high. If I get everything, it sounds a bit messy. As you can see, so that's what the filter is really useful for. If you want to get very standard delays, which are more popular, usually 116, 1/8 are the ones you see in a lot of fast melodies with a low feedback, as this is going to give us a bit more. It sounds a lot cleaner. You can have a higher feedback. Okay, you can lower the mix as well, so it's maybe in the back. It's a lot better, as you can see. Now, cool things you can do with the delays is that we can use them to make really cool combing effects. So if we use very high value and we have a high feedback, it can self-resonate. So watch your ears here. You can see the self-resonation. It's still going. It's just going to stay there unless I lower the feedback. If we lower that down, we can get a metallic vibe. Okay, and what's happening there is it's just similar to what we did with like the dimension, in the sense that we have a super delayed thing that gets out of phase. The left and right are just giving you that. If you have this in normal mode, you get a very metallic vibe out of it, so you can use that to your advantage. The other thing we can also do is get rid of the BPM and have the left signal be a little, the right signal be a little bit delayed between 10 and 20 to get a sound to sound wide. This is what we consider the Haas effect. We're messing the timing up from the left and the right, which means being out of phase. Whenever you hear someone say that term, that's what that means. And we can use that on sounds to just get them to sound wide. You can also add a wide layer by having the Haas effect at 50%. So now you have a mono signal and a stereo signal. So you can hear it in the center. And with this, you can control where you want it. So if I want only highs to be wide, you hear this on the right side, you hear that nice top end. And in here, you hear it more to the left. So that's something cool we can do with the delay. Again, keep that in mind. A lot of people will set the delay super high up when you don't need to if you want to get a wide sound and still maintain that mono compatibility as well. The next effect we have, guys, is going to be the compressor. Now, the compressor is meant to reduce literally volume. It's meant to shape a sound. A lot of the times you won't really use it for what it's intended for, which is volume control, dynamic control. Mainly because a lot of these sounds, if you have a song, there's no dynamics in that. It's just a straight up bam. However, if you want to use it, we'll just talk about it. First off, the threshold is going to be pretty much you're going to set it to where you want. And if the sound hits the threshold, it will get compressed, aka lose volume. Compression makes you lose volume. A lot of people think it gets you loud, but that's not the case. It's supposed to make you lose volume as you're compressing downwards on this. Okay, so the threshold is going to be set there. We have our ratio, which is how hard the compressor is acting on something. So if you have a ratio of 1:1, nothing's going to happen there, because for every one sound that goes over the threshold, one sound comes out. Here we have for every 2 decibels that goes over the compressor at 2:1, 1 decibel will come out. So you can see we're losing volume. The higher the ratio, the harder it's going to compress the sound. Keep that in mind. So if I put this at 4:1, we'll leave it there for the next one. Now, the next thing we have is the attack of the compressor. So that's how long it will take to kick in after the threshold has been hit by your sound. So this is super useful for sounds where it's a bit plucky and you want to make it even pluckier. Let's assume we want this to have a click. So as you can see here, I've made it up. Compressor. You can see the attack, since we're compressing everything after the click of the saw, it kind of accentuates it. So I made up for the volume loss there. But this is the way it sounds like. If we give a higher attack, the release is how long the compressor sustains for. Compressor is definitely useful for baseline subs. Sometimes the sub will not be constantly the same volume as you go from low octaves up to high. So compressor is good to add on it just to get it to sound stable if you're making a sub inside of Serum. But you can also do it outside of Serum with Ableton's compressor and whatnot. Now, the next feature we have in the compressor, which is what Serum is a powerhouse at, is going to be the multiband feature here, which activates the OTT format, or the multiband compression. Now, multiband compression, guys, in standard, you're going to have a compressor for your highs, for your mids, and your lows. Here, we're going to be having downwards compression, upwards compression, okay? Now, what does that mean? Well, Upwards compression is going to be the opposite of downwards compression, which is what we did here, where the volume was getting reduced. Upwards compression, when the threshold is hit on an upwards compression compressor, it pushes it up. It pushes the volume of the sound up even more. So imagine you're running and you hit that threshold, and then there's some jackass there that's ready to push you forward so that you go even faster. But at the same time, you have the downwards compression. So imagine someone has a rope around your waist, and at the same time, they're pulling you back. Okay, that is what the best way for the analogy of this. Now, what this means is that you get a super compressed sound where you're squishing the life out of the sound. So what is the purpose of it? Well, a lot of sounds, when you squish them even further, they start to get really interesting sounds. For instance, we have a saw, and we put an OTT on. You can hear that it's compressed to hell. It sounds like a boost on the highs and whatnot. Now, the cool thing about the OTT here is that you can control the highs. Let's say you think, oh, this is too high-end descent. I don't like this effect. Well, you can definitely move that down. So pretty much here, we're moving the downwards compression down, pushing down more, so the volume on the highs gets lower. Okay. You can do that for the mids. You can do that for the lows. You can also put LFOs on that if that's what you want. And you would have to go into the matrix, which we will talk about, to kind of fix that. But you can do a lot of cool stuff with it. When it comes to sound design, however, certain sounds will definitely sound a lot better with it on. It will sound like the sound sounds like it's been in a track that has been mastered. And with other sounds, like certain sounds like plucks and whatnot, it will sound a bit harsh and it will kill your sound. So you got to be really careful when you use it. Ideally, put it on. If you feel like it doesn't work, mess around with the threshold as it pulls back and down. Okay, and then fine tune from there. We'll be using it in some sound design at the end of this video to bring this all together. Now, the next thing we have, guys, is going to be the reverb. We're going to have a plate reverb and a Haas style reverb. Now, I prefer to use the Haas all the time, as the plate isn't really my cup of tea. However, I will teach you how to utilize it, but I'll just let you guys know I'm no pro with it. I dislike it a lot. I think the Haas is the best one in Serum, and that's a stretch too, because the reverb inside of Serum isn't the greatest. Okay, so first off, in the setting, we have the size of the Haas that we are going to be putting our sound in. This is meant to emulate. A lower saw size will give you a reverb that's more in your face. It can also sound a bit metallic as well. A longer size will give you a reverb that is a bit more, has more depth. Okay. As you can see, more in your face will lower the size. Decay is just a decay. How long it takes for the reverb to go back to 0 after it has been. As you guys can see. Now, the next features are super useful and overlooked a lot. And this is going to be our reverb low cut and our high cut. So let's assume we're making like a track where we have a very chill kind of sound, or we're making techno. A lot of the times that high reverb really kills the vibe, so we can use a high cut to get rid of the high. And you can see the reverb instantly sounds a lot better. It's not messing up anything. Now, the other thing too is a lot of times you might want to add reverb to sounds that are playing at a very low octave. But you don't want low reverb that's going to mess up your mix, mess up your low end. So that's where you can use a low cut. So using these two in correlation can give you some really good reverbs that you can use in a track. We have a bit of reverb there, but it's not destroying our mix. You can see we have that abundance of reverb there, so we can increase the low cut. We can release a bit of the high cut. Okay. Next thing we have is a spin rate and a spin depth. Now, from my understanding, a lot of times we do like to put choruses on reverb, which is going to modulate it, and that's what this is doing. So the spin rate is going to be for that. So if you have a high spin depth, it's going to modulate it more, and this is the speed of it. You can kind of hear. You know, let's make a super saw if we can. You can kind of hear it a bit. So the spin depth is kind of good for when you want to add a bit of movement to your reverb. However, use it sparingly. Now the next reverb we have, guys, is going to be the plate reverb, which is a 2-dimensional reverb, okay? And the difference between the plate and the Hall, if you look at it, is plate reverbs tend to be a bit more metallic, as it's going to be the vibrations through metal, while Hall reverbs and room reverbs are going to be vibrations through air. So Hall and room reverbs are better at really emulating a sound in a space, while plate reverbs are more, they sound nice, I guess. So with a plate reverb, we do have a set of new settings which are kind of useful. We're going to have pretty much the Hall reverb spin and depth change to width and dampness now. We're going to have still the low cut, a high cut, but now we have a pre-delay. Pre-delay is going to be pretty much how long it takes for the reverb to kick in after it hits. So if I hit, then reverb comes in. A high pre-delay, and then it comes in. This is useful for sounds that are very plucky. Let's assume we have a very plucky sound and we don't want the reverb to sit on top of it. We can use that for it to kick in at a later time. Okay, next we have the side, which is going to be in correlation with the decay of it. You can definitely make a sound a lot brighter with the plate reverb more than a Hall. Okay, now here, the higher the side, pretty straightforward. You get a longer decay time. But you gotta be really careful with it because it will muddy your sound up, as you can. So in this scenario, I can increase the width so that it's more on the side. It definitely makes a saw sound a lot more interesting, as you can see, just with some basic features. Low cut does the same. High cut. Okay, higher side. And as you can see, the plate doesn't really, at times, doesn't fit in like with the sound itself. It doesn't put the lead in a room, but instead it adds this sort of plate vibe to it. So the Hall is better for more of a natural vibe, and the plate is there if you guys feel like you can utilize it a little better. The last thing we have is that damp knob, guys, and the damp knob's a bit hard to explain because usually Halls and rooms will have them, and what it does is it lowers the high frequencies. It makes something sound a little bit more organic, so you really want to dampen that up. If you were to scream inside a church, you know, praise the Lord, the reverb coming back at you in that room wouldn't have a lot of high frequencies. So damping helps in kind of creating that emulation. However, in the plate, it sounds a bit more interesting. We still have those highs there, but if we increase the damp, we lose the high. And you get this weird kind of metallic sound in return. So definitely useful there if you guys want to try that out. Next thing we have, guys, is going to be a standard EQ. We're going to have a low shelf, a band peak, or sorry, a peak, or a bell, as you would hear it in Ableton. These are useful for creating sort of, you know, I guess mixing the sound through Serum, but also certain sounds you can kind of make them sound a little bit more brighter. You can give them a bit of a different tonal vibe to it. Then you're going to have the standard low pass. This is useful if you're trying to make sounds and be a perfectionist about it. You know this sound is a lead. You know it doesn't need those low frequencies, so you can get rid of them with the EQ inside of Serum. You know, a lot of times if you use presets from preset companies, a lot of times the good presets will have this EQ there, which makes the sound a lot cleaner coming out of Serum. And you're like, wow, this is actually pretty good. And one of those key things is just EQing. The EQing they're doing for you. Okay, so on the left side we have those. On the right side we have everything, but it's the opposite. Instead of a low cut, or sorry, a low pass and a low shelf, we have a high shelf and a high pass. So we can kind of use those here. Okay, and then the bell, which, you know, gives you access to another one. And then a high shelf, which is just going to boost everything above the frequency you set it to. Okay, EQ, pretty straightforward. We can use it for whenever we have sounds, and then we have the filter. So now that we have these effects, guys, let's make some dope sounds. Okay, so the first sound we can create is just a very standard kind of selected style pluck, so we can use an analog wave for this. Okay, we're going to use a filter here, maybe low 18, close it and open it up with envelope 2 to shape it. Let's add a bit of a punch to that course, or that. There we go. That's sounding a lot nicer. Maybe a little bit more decay. Okay, awesome. Okay, here we're going to go into the effects. Let's put a bit of reverb to make it sound a little bit more nicer. Put it in a room. Lowering the size and maybe the decay a bit. Okay, cool. Let's add an EQ to get rid of some of the lows we don't need. I'm gonna add a bit of air by just increasing here the high shelf gain. Okay, here maybe we can increase that, the decay here. Let's add a bit of delay to make it more interesting. Maybe 1/16 a ping pong. And just the highs. And let's increase the feedback. Let's go 1/16. Okay, I'm gonna add a compressor here at the end as well to tame some of those clicks. Lower the attack all the way. A bit of attack, not too much. Okay, cool. Here maybe I can use the delay for a Haas Effect, so get rid of the BPM. 0 to maybe 20 on one side and go all the way. There we go, sounding a lot nicer. So pretty helpful here. The only reason I would want to add a filter here at the end of the sound is if, let's say, there's something that I do where it gives a bit of nasty highs. I can always add this filter here. Maybe you want to have the effect as, I don't know, maybe the reverb, you want to control it as well. You can definitely do that as well here. Maybe, I ran out of Eacute. But you can definitely use it also as a, bring it up. You can also use any of the mist filters like a comb if that's what you want. Okay, sometimes it might sound good, sometimes it might not. It just really depends. Okay, like for instance, that one gives it a nice kind of tropical kind of vibe in a way. And you can do a lot of cool stuff with that. But that's going to be the first sound we do, guys. The next sound we can do is a standard big room sound. So we can have maybe like just one saw here and make a very driven sound by using the OTT. So we can use this guy, pull it back, brace your ear. And let's tame it a bit. Let's put mono legato on it with always. So that way we get... So you can see that OTT definitely does a lot to the sound. You know, there we go. Maybe we can get... There we go, so we get that nice... Let's add another layer maybe to make it a little bit more... And we're going to add this kind of pitchback effect to it just to give it a nice kind of effect. We're going to add a mono layer as well. And we're going to add that pitchback effect on it as well. Let's put it in a room to make it sound more anthemic. A bit of delay, but not too much. Just enough to kind of give it a bit more kind of depth. Faster. Ping pong. Remember, the OTT will make, or the compressor, if there's anything behind it, it will bring it to the front. You can see, so it's up to you to decide how you want to do the signal flow of things. Okay, here we can also put a band pass if that's what you like, to maybe the oscillator A. Let's do a 20. Let's put it both to them. Put a bit of distortion as well. Let's EQ it a bit. Boost the mids so it gets more body, maybe around 500. Put the EQ maybe in front of the compressor so we don't EQ the reverb and delay. Notice how much body that gives. With the proper EQ, you can definitely get the sound a little bit beef. Okay, there we go. Maybe reduce it. Get rid of this. Notice how much work that EQ is doing, man. Okay, so that's going to be a big room lead that we can do where we use the EQ and the OTT compressor, and it works pretty good. The other thing we can do with reverb, guys, is make leads, or sorry, string-based sounds. Like, for instance, you know, we can have that maybe there. Let's add a bit of a decay punch to it to give it to stab. We'll use a envelope as well, maybe around here. And then put a bunch of reverb on. Maybe let's put another one here and set that up. Let's put a bit of a staccato. And then from there, you know, you can do a lot with it. You know, just getting that reverb right. You know, so it kind of sounds a bit stringy. Definitely not the perfect string emulation, but if you're trying to do that, good way to do it as well. I just don't like the very metallic vibe that it gets from it. The last thing we can do, guys, is just an art melody and making something that sounds good. So let's see, maybe pick like a standard sound like a saw. And we'll just give it a bit of a decay. Let's give it a bit of a tack so it has a bit of a fluff. First thing is the delay. You can give it a bit more swing vibe to it. Reverb makes it sound very majestic, even stock like that. Give it up some of the lows. There we go. Let's put a bit of a OTT on it. A lot of times if you're trying to add body to a sound, definitely add it here into the mids, guys, especially if you feel like the sound sounds thin. 500 hertz is the best way to do. If you want a bit more highs or more air, add it on the high frequencies, but you just got to be careful not to overdo it. If you're trying to go for a more close sound, definitely don't use the OTT as it's going to kill. So definitely a lot you guys can do, and hopefully this inspires you guys to use Serum, know how to use the reverbs, high cut, low cut to get a proper reverb. And I'll see you guys next time for another tutorial. You guys take care. Next time I'm planning on going over the warp section inside of Serum, so that should be a lot of fun.